striking. What makes a great conjunction striking? Two things. One, do the planets come very close to each other? And they each have a little bit of orbital tilt as they go around the sun, just
Mm.
enough, less than 2.5 degrees in both of their cases. But I mean,
The quite faint Saturn. So that's why Jupiter's, overexposed and looking white. We can't see the bands. We can't see the great red spot.
or it's the two of them are so close to the sun that they're too low to the horizon. You're right. It's the rings, exactly. If you compare
Yeah.
body with body, then you'll. And if they were only the same distance, I ended up being with them in every issue for 17 years, but that was my very first. And it's a fascinating topic. People never tire of the idea of the Star of Bethlehem, the Christmas star, what it was. And planetariums throughout the world, there in England and here in America, every year have a show they usually call Star of Wonder or something to that effect. And the idea is, what could that Star of Bethlehem really been? Was it a comet? Was it a supernova? Was it a conjunction like this one? Was it a planet by itself, like Jupiter was in Aries in 6 BC, when some, although most experts say that was not the time of the birth, but could have been? What was it really? And here you run into a real rat's nest, because every planetarium director that I did the article with told me that they all know that it could not have been any of those things. And you know why?
Okay.
Well, every backyard astronomer knows why. Because you can't get anywhere by following anything in the sky. So the Magi,
it's always moving.
if they saw something in the sky, because things in the sky move. Everything rises in the east, moves rightward during the night, sets in the west. So you go in a big semicircle if you tried to follow something in the sky. Planetarium directors express it by saying things in the sky don't lead. So saying the wise men were following a star, not to mention that nothing comes to a screeching halt over Bethlehem or anywhere else. Nothing comes to a halt. Now, there is one place, as you well know, Paul, where things in the sky don't move, and that's the mid-northern sky where the North Star is, where Polaris is. That's stationary. The problem there is that eliminates all the planet possibilities, because planets are never in the north. And also, the Magi were not going north. They were going southwest to get to Bethlehem. So you can cross that one off, too. So the bottom line is, couldn't have been anything in the sky. So when we bring up topics, and I know the media, for example, CNN today is calling this, what we're looking at right now, the Christmas star. Well, we can call it a Christmas star. That's kind of nice for 2020. It's been a tough year for a lot of us. To say that this represents the Christmas star for the year, lighting up the sky, bringing us some cheer, great. But if you're saying, was this a star that the wise men followed to get to Jesus? Can't be. So
Not
what
unless they
was
walked
the
in
Star of
semicircles.
Bethlehem? So do you want me to spend a minute on what was the Star of Bethlehem if it wasn't any of these celestial objects?
Make it a quick minute, Bob. Yes, please.
Okay, 1 minute. Number one, that account appeared in Matthew, but not Luke. Luke said not a word in that gospel about any kind of star. So why was it only in Matthew? And Luke is considered by historians as being the more accurate of the gospels, by the way. Well, Matthew wrote his account 50 years after the death of Christ. And at that time, there happened to be a story going around, a fictional story, about a hero who followed a star to get to where he wanted to go. So some believe that he lifted that story and put that into his gospel. Now, others, like Dr. Aaron Adair in a recent book, I know the book because I was asked to write the foreword to it, called Star of Bethlehem, A Skeptical View, showing that most scholars think it was astrological. We talked about astrology earlier. The reasoning is this. Great kings were always thought that they should have a star, an astrological star heralding their birth. So why shouldn't the coming of the Savior have an astrological omen? So by this thinking, there was an omen. It wasn't a real object, an astronomy object in the sky. It was an omen, an astrological omen. And so he presents evidence for that. So I think that I've said enough about this, but I hope listeners don't take this as a put down of religion, because if you believe, for our viewers who think that there was an actual star, then you can believe that there was a star that only the Magi were able to see.
Exactly.
All we're saying,
And yeah, if
yeah,
you're religious, then you can believe in that being
believe
a
all
miracle.
we're all
Yeah.
we're saying is that this idea of using astronomy that planetarium directors know is not a real explanation. In other words, using fictitious astronomy is sort of not doing justice to astronomy, and it's not doing justice to religion either. Because the idea of saying, was it a comet, was it a supernova, it couldn't have been those things, and yet in the planetarium shows they don't say that it couldn't have been. They're offering these things because people have been coming to those shows since the 1930s, and they're very popular.
Yeah.
And it sort of doesn't serve religion well because it sort of suggests that, well, there was no real miracle because we can explain it all. So we think that both are poorly served by
Yeah.
these ideas of exploring the true origins of the star.
I agree, Bob. Listen, thank you very much for joining us this evening. We will see you back in the new year, maybe for the Quadrantids meteor shower. We've got a few other shows lined up as well. But thank you so much, Bob, for sharing your
Right.
encyclopedic knowledge of the Great Conjunction with us this evening. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Paul. Good to be here.
Now, what do we got after this short break? We are going to welcome Dr. Mike Shaw. Now, Mike leads the Slooh Nightscape Club.